Hello and welcome back to this podcast. English literature again and again. Okay, welcome to this review, summary, or just some points about John Keats. So, John Keats and Fanny Brown. Throughout most of his life, John Keats was confused by women and saw little value in love and marriage. All this changed when he met Frances or Fanny Brown between August and December of 1818. While he was still confused by her, Fanny was a woman he could love and whom Keats saw as an equal. The last 3 years of Keats' life were a mixture of pain and pleasure as Keats fell in love with and then was forced to watch Fanny from afar as he lay dying. This gamut of emotions that John Keats felt for and as a result of Fanny Brown can be readily seen in his many letters to her and his later poetry. Poems like Bright Star and La Belle Dame sans Merci reflect the dual nature of Keats' muse and his feelings regarding women in general, and the fact that these are still two of the most widely read poems by Keats is a testament to his truth and skill in conveying his emotions. In addition to the information and clues that can be gathered from his writings regarding his relationship with Fanny, there was a film released in 2009, Little Bright Star, that examines the life of Keats from the death of his brother Tom from tuberculosis and his meeting Fanny Brown in 1818 to his own death of tuberculosis in 1821. This film does a superb job at visualizing the time period and relationship between Fanny Brown and John Keats, as well as highlighting on the troubles the relationship caused with Keats' friends, such as Charles Brown. It is clear to see that the meeting of Fanny Brown in December of 1818 forever changed the life of John Keats. His poetry would not have been the same. His views on women and love would have been different, and perhaps even his untimely demise at the age of 25 may have been prevented if he had been free to leave for Italy and better climates sooner. John Keats' life began on the 31st of October 1795 when he was born to Thomas and Frances Keats in London. Over the next 23 years, Keats gains three brothers, George, Tom, and Edward, a sister, Frances Mary, and loses his brother Edward and both parents. His mother died from tuberculosis also. He also attends medical school, becomes a surgeon, and begins to write poetry and have it published. On the 5th of May, 1816, O Solitude was published, paving the way for future published works such as Endymion and poems, and in late 1880, early 1819, he meets Fanny Brown and writes Bright Star. To Fanny and La Belle Dame sans Merci, from this point forward, John Keats had a decidedly focused mind, with his emotions and thoughts always returning to his love, Fanny Brown. This extremely strong attraction to Miss Fanny Brown grew out grew out of a feeling by Keats that Fanny was his equal. Perhaps the main aspect of the relationship lies in the fact that Keats seems able from the start to speak to Fanny without the kind of crippling self-consciousness or tongue-tied self-amusement he felt in the presence of other women. Between brackets, White R.S. John Keats, A Literary Life, page 146. This feeling of being a more equal footing with Fanny Brown was unusual for Keats, as he generally found talking to and interacting with women to be troublesome and tedious. In a letter to Bailey, the clergyman, Keats writes, "I'm certain I have not a right feeling towards women. At this moment I am striving to be just to them, but I cannot. When I was a schoolboy, I thought a fair woman a pure goddess. I thought them ethereal above men. I find them perhaps equal. Great, by comparison, is very small. When among men I have not evil thoughts, no malice, no spleen. I feel free to speak or to be silent. I can listen, and from everyone I can learn. When I am among women, I have evil thoughts, malice, spleen. I cannot speak or be silent. I am full of suspicions, and therefore listen to nothing. I am in a hurry to be gone. Yet, with such feelings, I am happier alone among crowds of men, by myself or with a friend or two. An obstinate prejudice can seldom be produced but from a Gordian complication of feelings. Keats, John, selected letter of John Keats, 8 Grant F. Scott, Cambridge, Massachusetts, Harvard University Press, 2002, page 169. The simple ability to have a conversation with Fanny Brown made her a woman unlike any other that Keats had met. Not needing to unravel the Gordian knot of feelings made a relationship with a woman possible for John Keats with Fanny Brown. Fanny Brown was a woman unlike others, and this difference is what attracted Keats and made her someone he could talk to. Despite this unusual ability to have a discussion with Fanny Brown, their relationship was not without its share of problems. Before deciding he was in love with Fanny, John Keats had a few initial things to say about her in a letter written to his brother and sister-in-law, George and Georgina Keats, that spanned from the 16th of December 1818 to the 14th of January 1819. Mrs. Brown is her a very nice woman, and her daughter, Senior, Fanny, is, I think, beautiful and elegant, graceful, silly, fashionable, and strange. We have a little tiff now and then, and she behaves a little better, or I must have sheared off. Keats Selected Letters, page 218. Days later, in the same letter, Keats again writes on the subject of Miss Brown. Shall I give you Miss Brown? She is about my height, with a fine style of countenance, of the lengthened sort. She wants sentiment in every feature. She manages to make her hair look well. Her nostrils are fine, though a little painful. Her mouth is bad and good. Her profile is better than her full face, which indeed is not full but pale and thin without showing any bone. Her shape is very graceful, and so are her movements. Her arms are good, her hands buddish, her feet tolerable. She is ignorant, monstrous in her behavior, flying out in all directions, calling people such names that I was forced lately to make use of the term minx. Keats Selected Letters, page 222. These are just some initial comments, but it is clear to see that Keats was intrigued by this little minx. Prior to Fanny Brown, Keats' views on love were not quite so generous. He really saw little purpose in love, and found it to be tedious. In a letter to his mother, George, in September of 1819, just a month before he wrote his first love letter to Fanny, Keats writes, Nothing strikes me so forcibly with a sense of the ridiculous as love. A man in love, I do think, cut the sorriest figure in the world. Even when I know a poor fool to be really in pain about it, I could burst out laughing in his face. His pathetic visage becomes irresistible. Keats Selected Letters, page 361. Keats was so against the idea and result of love that he thought it and the reactions it produced in others to be simply laughable. Just a month later, this same man was writing to Fanny Brown about how consumed he was with her. One of those laughable side effects of love that he previously mocked. Keats, referring to Fanny as his sweet girl, writes, I am looking in yesterday. I was in complete fascination all day. I feel myself at your mercy. You dazzled me. Page 429. Already it is getting a little thick with love talk. Keats then writes about a story about himself that his friend Charles Brown had told that he feared would cause him to lose Fanny's affection. When he thought about losing her love, he wrote to her that I have had 1,000 kisses, for which, with my whole soul, I thank love. But if you should deny me the 1,001st, it would put me to the proof how great a misery I could live through. Keats, the letters of John Keats, page 430. So not only is he guilty, his prior labeled silly behavior, but he feels so strongly about her that if he were to lose her love, it would test his very will to go on living. From this point forward, the relationship between John Keats and Fanny Brown blossomed. Keats and Miss Brown were in love, but they, there were pressing matters that needed attention. First of all three was the issue of money. Keats was apprenticed to the surgeon Thomas Hammond and went to and entered his hospital in 1815 as a student. Later, to become a surgeon's assistant and a licensed physician in his own right. Around the same time, Keats started writing and publishing poetry and eventually gave up his career as a surgeon and began to write and live off his poetry in earnest. Unfortunately, the money that trickled in from his poetry was a meager allowance and prevented him from fully realizing his dreams and goals. When John Keats and Fanny Brown had completely fallen in love, they became engaged, but due to John's financial issues, had to keep the engagement secret because Keats could not afford to support a wife. They kept the engagement a secret from all but their closest friends. It remained a secret to the general public till 1878, when his letters to her were finally published. The two later became publicly became publicly engaged for a time, but the tuberculosis that had claimed his brother Tom was lurking around the corner. As the disease became worse, Keats began to weaken and had to be confined indoors. While in quarantine, the greatest pain that John Keats felt was having to watch his beloved from afar. In the film Bright Star, based on Jane Campion's book about John Keats and Fanny Brown's three-year relationship, this pain and longing is evident. Once the film moves on to the end period of Keats's life, we are shown many scenes of Keats wallowing in early pity and despair as Fanny Brown frolics and laughs beyond the panes of glass. Okay, we'll stop here until I finish it again. Thank you for following.